Qui Qua. Here is a story that includes Quebec, the native people of North America, Louisiana, Gorée Island, the fortified island used to enslave Africans located on the west coast of Africa, India, France, England, Spain, Portugal, Guadeloupe, St. Lucia, to name a few involved in this tale. In these videos, we use local and or traditional knowledge as a starting point to dig in and better understand our history. The word or place we will be using today is Choiseul. Choiseul is a place in St. Lucia. The village of Choiseul in St. Lucia was originally known as Anse-Citon. This independent parish was established in 1765. In the 1769 census, there were recorded 75 whites, 25 free-colored, 512 Negroes, and there were 69 estates in the parish of Choiseul in St. Lucia. The village of Choiseul and Pralin in St. Lucia are named after Caesar Gabriel de Choiseul, Duc de Pralin, a French diplomat. From the 13th of October 1761 to the 8th of April 1766, he served as Secretary of State, a Minister for Foreign Affairs. Replacing this office his cousin Etienne de Choiseul. He negotiated the peace that ended the 7-Year War with the Treaty of Paris, signed on the 10th of February 1763. The cousin of Caesar Gabriel de Choiseul, Duc de Pralin, who is Etienne François Marquis de Stainville, Duc de Choiseul, was a French military officer, diplomat and statesman from 1758 to 1761, and from 1766 to 1770 he was Foreign Minister of France. He had a strong influence on France's global strategy throughout the 7-Year War period. He is closely associated with France's defeat in the 7 Years' War and subsequent effort to rebuild French prestige after their defeat. The 7 years refers to the events in Europe from the official declaration of war in 1756 to the signing of the peace treaty in 1763. The 7-Year War started 2 years after what is known as the French and Indian War had already begun. The war is called the French and Indian War as it is considered by Britain as the French and Indians versus the British. However, they are not Indians. They are mislabeled because Columbus did not make it to India by traveling west. They encountered the natives and wrongly called them Indians. So this is the name they have called the struggle to appropriate the natives' land, the 7-Year War. The French and the Indian War is used to describe the North American theater, where it really should be called the French, British and Natives War. The natives had been fighting to oust the invading forces of Europe since they first landed on their shores. They were embroiled in this war as both the French and British made promises to get them to fight for them on either side. Some native people fought for the French and some fought for the British. Some remained neutral. They fought on both sides and suffered heavy casualties, losing land and lives in the process. It is a real tragedy with consequences that exists today. Recently, they were unearthing native bodies, children bodies in residential schools. The Battle of the Plains of Abraham was a culmination of the 7-Year War. This battle took place in modern-day Quebec, Canada, which was then known as New France or Nouvelle France. The 7-Year War was a European struggle like World War I and World War II, while they were fighting over resources, which was the native lands of the people in the so-called New World. The Battle of the Plains of Abraham was also known as the Battle of Quebec. It was a pivotal battle in the 7 Years' War, and it cemented the defeat of France in the so-called New World of North America, in the natives' lands, and cemented the rise of Britain. This war cemented the rise of Britain. It had theaters also in Asia, Africa, Europe, the Caribbean, and North and South America. But the French and Indian War was where the natives of North America were heavily involved in the fighting on one side or the other. Ostensibly, they were used to kill each other, divide and conquer tactics, as you see. The French and Indian War, or the French natives, British and French War in America lasted roughly about 6 years from the Battle of Jumonville Glen in 1754 to the capture of Montreal in 1760. So after the Battle of the Plains of Abraham, the Treaty of Paris was signed in 1763, which marked the defeat of France. Now, there were also theaters in Europe, because they were fighting in Europe, but they were trying to take each other's colonies all around the world. The Treaty of Paris, also known as the Treaty of 1763, was signed on 10th February 1763 by the kingdoms of Great Britain, France and Spain, with Portugal in agreement after Great Britain and Prussia's victory over France and Spain during the 7-Year War. In the years following the Treaty of Paris of 1763, Choiseul attempted to rebuild the French military. Although he was too late to prevent the loss of Canada and India, he developed French colonies in the Antilles and San Domingo. He brought about the banishment of the Jesuits as well. Choiseul's fall was partly caused. Now, he did fall, his reign didn't last for very long. Now, it is said that his fall was partly caused by his actions against the Jesuits, among other things. The suppression of the Jesuits began in France, in the French island colony of Martinique, however, where the Society of Jesus, as they were known, had a commercial stake in sugar plantations, worked by black slaves and free labor. These large mission plantations included large local populations that worked under the usual conditions of tropical colonial agriculture of the 18th century. In other words, the Jesuits were saying that they were there to save souls, baptizing the native populations and working them on the plantations for profit. During the war, Great Britain had conquered the French colonies of Canada, Guadeloupe, St. Lucia, Martinique, Dominica, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Tobago, the French factories, trading ports in India, the slave trading stations in Gorée, the Senegal River and its settlements, the Spanish colonies of Manila in the Philippines, and Havana in Cuba. British colonization began in North America almost a century after Spain. The relatively late arrival meant that the British could use other European colonization powers as models for their endeavors. Inspired by the Spanish riches from colonies founded upon the conquest of the Aztec, the Incas, and other large Native American populations in the 16th century, the first attempt of colonization occurred in Roanoke and Newfoundland. Although unsuccessful, in 1606, King James I granted a charter with the purpose of discovering the riches at their first permanent settlement in Jamestown, Virginia in 1607. They were sponsored by common stock companies such as the Chartered Virginia Company, financed by wealthy Englishmen who exaggerated the economic potential of the land. So, France lost all its territory after the war in mainland North America, except for the territory of Louisiana, west of the Mississippi River. France retained only fishing rights off of Newfoundland and the two small islands of St. Pierre and Miquelon, where the fishermen could dry their catch. In turn, France gained the return of its sugar colony of Guadeloupe, which it considered more valuable than Canada. It did not have the army to fight and protect its Canadian territory, so it opted just to have Guadeloupe. Voltaire had notoriously dismissed Acadia as quelques apens de neige, a few acres of snow. Guadeloupe, Martinique, St. Lucia, Gorée, and the Indian factories were returned to France. In return, France recognized the sovereignty of Britain over Canada. Its Nouvelle France was given to England, Dominica, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Tobago. Britain took over these, including Canada. France ceded the eastern half of French Louisiana as well to Britain. Britain confirmed the right of its new subjects to practice Catholicism. So we started off with the idea of looking at the name of a village in St. Lucia called Choiseul, and we found out about the 7-Year War, the Battle of the Plains of Abraham, the French-Indian, so-called French-Indian War, and this is what we have found. If you like the content, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and stay tuned for more. Edikui Kwa.